The Warhammer, one of gaming and Hollywood's favorite weapons in the fantasy genre, making for some of the best action scenes and legendary weapons. In real life, hammer-like weapons were found around the globe and throughout history, but commonly they were not much larger than a typical modern carpentry hammer. Hammers, axes, and virtually all types of clubs and bludgeoning weapons were simple to use, make, and effective. A trained man with a steel sword almost always had the advantage over these weapons. But this would change during the late Middle Ages, particularly in the context of the 100 Years' War, when plate armor began to fully encase men. The advancements of armor in the 14th century reduced the once effectiveness of edged weapons. Swordsmen would develop new ways of fighting armored opponents. This scene from The King shows just how difficult these engagements could be. Sometimes smashing an opponent with the guard or pommel of the sword, or grappling, was more effective than a traditional thrust or slash. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is oddly another film that shows some of these techniques reasonably well. Alternative to this style of fighting was using a mace or hammer. Some were two-handed weapons, but most were one. They could have spikes or flanges to focus energy into a target. Some were designed to penetrate armor, but concussive strikes were the most effective. There were long hammer weapons like poleaxes, good against infantry and cavalry, but sledge-style or Thor-style hammers were not as effective. Logistics were important. Outside the fantasy world, no one wants to carry a 20-pound hammer, when a 3 or 4-pound hammer will do the job. On me! The biggest issue with a heavy hammer is that it's a slow weapon. Take Gendry's sledgehammer-style weapon from Game of Thrones. It was only ever shown useful against zombies that can't dodge, and King's Landing guards not paying attention.
You're going to arrange to pay us more than Queen's service.
Braveheart has some of the best examples of the swinging distances needed to be effective with different bludgeons, showing how the heavier and longer the weapon, the more distance and time required to use it. One of the few well-done historic features of the movie was giving Wallace a hammer for some scenes, over using his massive claymore for every battle. One fantastic scene from Punisher shows how fighting with a sledgehammer can be done, but that the tool must be held right below the heavy-weighted head, making it not much more useful than bashing someone with a large mass of steel or stone. That's not to say sledgehammer-type weapons didn't exist. These were called mauls. Some were purpose-built weapons, but most were tools adapted for war. Typical European warhammers of the late Middle Ages had a beak or curved spike on one side and a hammer's head with teeth on the other. A third spike in line with the hammer was present for thrusting. You can see good examples in Robin Hood from 2010 and Kingdom of Heaven from 2005. These style of warhammers could puncture light armor and hook into shields, reins, or armored joints. These small hammers are more versatile than an axe against armor and were less likely to inadvertently get stuck in an opponent.
Hey, do you notice anything on my head? It's an itch or a cut that simply won't go away.
Just as spears were, bludgeons could be more common than swords on a battlefield, but swordsmen also adapted. Swordsmen learned to pummel, smash, and bash, and they learned to identify weak points in the armor, such as in the armpits or at the joints. But swords were in decline, especially for armored horsemen looking to disable an opponent with one swing.
Stop!
The best thing about a lightweight hammer or mace is that it could be carried along with other weapons and used as needed. They were also relatively inexpensive, basically an evolution of the club, that even if crude, was effective. All right, I'm Johnny. Thanks for watching this brief on Warhammers and Bludgeons. Feel free to add any info in the comment section, and we'll see you in the next one.